Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? Popo here bringing guys a new video, and today we're going to be updating our tier list. We last did this, like a month ago at this point, so I think it was time for an updated list. I also put the restricted in here, so we're going to do one big list for everything, so hopefully that's okay. I'm going to keep these the same, though. Every team staples, very viable, team specific, and niche viability. It's going to be really hard for restricted to get into every team, but they'll probably, like, staple will probably be the S tier for restricteds more than these other ones, whereas this will probably be SS tier for non-restricteds, basically. But yeah, so a lot has changed. We had 2 regionals this past weekend. We have one coming up this weekend in San Antonio. Be interesting to see if those metas carry over or not. I'm not really sure. See if we see a rise of Kyogre a little bit more, or if we see continued, Miraidon. So be really interesting. But let's get right into this list here. We're going to start off with Gastrodon. I think this is a team-specific Pokemon. It's good against Urshifu. It's good against Kyogre. It's pretty good against Miraidon as well. It's just really slow and just can't put up with a lot of the other restricted, so it makes it really hard to use. Maybe in a double restricted format, this thing will see more use, as it'll probably have more, there's more room for that creativity, whereas in this one, it's like you gotta have counters for counters. You can't rely on a second restricted and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's team specific at the moment. Amoonguss. So I had Amoonguss on every team going into the regulation. I'm gonna move it down to staple. I think it's been kind of meh recently, and against those Miraidon teams, it's just not really doing anything besides redirection, which is good. Like, redirection's very good, but it's just not putting up the numbers that you would expect from it. And it's still really, really good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still really, really good. I just don't think it's an every team Pokemon anymore. I think it's just a little bit weaker than that. Iron Jugulis, I think, is team specific, but maybe close to very viable. This Pokemon's really good. It's very fast. It's up Tailwind. It can go for Snarls. It's really, really good into the Calyrex Shadow Rider matchup. It's actually okay into the Calyrex Ice Rider matchup too, though it does have a weakness to it. It can still put on a little bit of pressure with, Dark Pulse and stuff too. But usually you're going to go for Tailwind, Protect, Snarl, and Air Slash to have your moves. It can also flinch things with that Air Slash, so it could be a little volatile. I like it. I think it's a pretty decent Pokemon, and yeah, but I think it's definitely very team specific. It's pretty good on that Kyogre team that people were using before. Iron Crown, I think Iron Crown is niche viability. I just don't think it's really that good right now. I just feel like it's just a little weak. It's lacking damage. You might as well use something like Dawn Wings or even Hatterene if you're going to go for the Expanding Force stuff. You can even go Calyrex Shadow Rider if you really wanted to, just to push out more damage and just be more consistent with it. Having the Steel type isn't really that big of a deal right now. Flutter Mains are more support at the moment than they are attackers, so you're not really putting pressure on a Pokemon that's extremely important. There are some Pokemon that are terrestrializing into fairy types like Calyrex or Miraidon, which this could do pretty well into, especially because it does resist that Dazzling Gleam. But it is very much weak to the Astral Barrage, so you got to be very careful for that. Maybe go Normal Tear or something like that if you are going to use this. I think it still has a place. I just don't think it's as good as it was. It can also outspeed Miraidon if they set up the electric terrain, but then also you're not getting a boost to your attack. So yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. Next we have Cornerstone. I think Cornerstone's a staple. I think I put it in very viable the last time, and but I think it's definitely a staple. It's probably behind Amoonguss. It's very strong. It allows you to go for Follow Me with the Sturdy, which is huge. So because it can't get any other item. If you do terrestrialize, it gets a defense boost, which isn't great. It's also weak to Zamazenta, so you have to be careful for those. It's neutral with water, which isn't the best, but I mean, so is Ogerpon Hearthflame. Yeah, I think it's just pretty good, and it pairs really well with stuff like Rillaboom. So yeah, so you can have double grass type. Sneasler. I've seen a lot people using Sneasler, but it's absolute cheeks, guys. I'm gonna put it back down here. I only put it back on the list from the trash tier which I did take a couple of Pokemon out of that we will talk about, and I'll just go through this real quick so you guys can see what's in there. If one of your favorite Pokemon that you've been using is in here, let me know. I'm always interested to try some new Pokemon. But yes, no, Sneasler is terrible. Please stop trying to make him work. Like, let him be back in Regulation H, all right? That was his place. And let's all move on. All right, Farigiraf. I think I had Farigiraf and Staples last time. This is every team Pokemon. Very, very, very strong Pokemon. It's on so many teams. It used to be just really Miraidon teams or choice item user teams, but now it's basically on every single team, especially with the rise of like Rillaboom. It's so good at just stopping the opposition from using those quick attacks, those priority attacks. I apologize. And yeah, it can output some damage too, set up Trick Room, so it could do quite a few things. It's just really, really, really solid. I've been seeing a lot of people using Specchier. It's terrible. Stop using this, please. It's not good. Just use a different ghost type. Just Fluttermane exists. You don't need this Pokemon. Just use Calm My Fluttermane instead of using Nasty Plot Specchier, please. It's just worse. Dragonite, I still think is niche. It could output a lot of damage. The problem is Farigiraf, right? Farigiraf stops this from doing anything. Though this thing absolutely destroys like Miraidon. If you can get rid of the Farigiraf first, this thing can come in and go for those Terra Normal extreme speeds. Unfortunately, it's just kind of a little bit behind, and it's just not outputting enough. Next is Mewtwo. Mewtwo is terrible. It gets a lot of coverage moves, but it just doesn't do any damage. It's just not significant enough to warrant a place in the team. Regular Ogerpon, I think, is niche. I'm going to put it at the top of niche here because it's still good. Getting that speed boost is huge, and having Define is really, really big at the moment. And you can also use Covert Cloak on it, which I think is a item that's probably overlooked on it. A lot of people using Focus Sash or Assault Vest, but I really do think that you could use Covert Cloak on this thing and take some surprise KOs on turn 1 against something like an Incineroar, where now you're getting this boost. They're going to go for Fake Out. This is ladder, of course. Don't get me wrong. This is on ladder. The GC that's coming up next week, you can put Covert Cloak on this thing, get a boost from the attack, and then you're putting a lot of pressure on like their other Pokemon. So you could do some really, really cool things with it. It doesn't really get the best coverage moves, so keep that in mind too, but it is really, really fast and can do a lot of damage after that Intimidate. Minshao is, I guess, team specific, I'll say. It's a fighting type that gets Wide Guard, which is kind of common, so it is fighting for positions, though out of those positions, Zamazenta is probably the only one that's like significantly better. So you could put this into your team pretty easily. With Focus Sash, it's going to live a hit. We've seen it do really well on Calyrex teams. Using Feint to break their Protect from that Astral Barrage is very, very good. So you can do some stuff from this, and yeah, it's really, really good. Calyrex Ice Rider is a staple, of course. This Pokemon is very, very strong and actually put up great numbers at Birmingham Regionals, though I don't think it did really well in the top cut. It did put up a very, very good win percentage, so I like Calyrex Ice Rider. I love using it. I think it's very fun. So yeah, once again, every tier is going to be like no restricted. It's going to be up here. So Annihilate. So I've been seeing quite a bit of Annihilate. I've been seeing Terra Ground Annihilate, which is something I'm going to put in very viable. I think it's pretty decent. It can run a couple of different sets, and one of the most common is going to be the Final Gambit. It outspeeds if you do max speed with Choice Scarf a lot of the Pokemon, though it still does not outspeed something like Fluttermane, so you do have to be careful about that if you are using it. And yeah, it's just if you're going for those Final Gambits especially, you're going to take a hit from the Fluttermane. So yeah, it's really, really good, and it can help you set up Trick Room pretty easily. Next we have Muck. Muck is going to be niche viability. You just got to make sure that you can fight a Muck at any point, because this dude can just come out of nowhere and just go for minimizes while you're on ladder, especially those GCs, and yeah, then you're just having a bad time. Serena, I think, is also team specific. I mean, are there use cases where it's going to be better than Farigiraf? Probably not. Only because if you're using your grass types for Serena, you're probably far behind. You should be using Rillaboom. And if you want a second grass type, it probably should be an Ogerpon. That way you can still go for like Grassy Glides, but you're also getting a boost. And when they terrestrialize, they get a lot stronger. So if you're using Serena as your second grass type, you might want to look into just switching it to Ogerpon. Even if it's just Ogerpon regular grass, I think it's just going to be better. So you don't have two like grass types that are weak to Intimidate. I know this also gets Grassy Glide, but you're usually not running Grassy Glide because you have to run, you know, like triple axle and all that stuff on it. Chien-Pao. Chien-Pao's a staple. This Pokemon is very good. It's good with some of the restricted, especially the physical ones, obviously. And it just puts on a lot of damage and pressures quite a few of them too. Like it pressures almost 100% of the time for Calyrex to actually terrestrialize. So you could just bring this thing and protect and they'll terrestrialize. And then you're just like, yeah, sure. You're just like, yep, okay, that's perfectly fine. And now you have a lot of pressure on the opposition. You can go for Icicle Crashes. You can go for Ice Spinner. Ice Spinner is probably really good because there's a lot of Miraidon out there, though. You're technically speed tied, but a lot of Miraidon right now are actually running Modest with Tailwind, so you got to be a little bit careful for that. If you are running Tailwind, though, you can go for the Ice Spinner with this thing. You'll always survive because of Focus Sash, so you are good to go. Tyranitar, I think, is still pretty good, but it's probably niche. It's, I'm trying to get there. It's really good against Ice Rider, and it's really good against Shadow Rider, but against most of the other ones, it's pretty meh. Lunala and Dawn Wings it's good against too, but it's really weak to Urshifu, both Urshifus, so it makes it very difficult to run it on the team. There's a lot of fighting types going around. Zamazenta is another one that this Pokemon, like he literally can't do any damage to Zamazenta, as he just Zamazenta resists every move that he gets besides high horsepower. So yeah, you're just not outputting enough damage to deal with the Zamazenta. Next is Pelipper. I think Pelipper is very viable. I think I had it in Staples before, but I think it's dropped off a little bit. It's still pretty good. It just... Oh, man. How do I... It's just... Its stats are so bad. Its stats are so bad that it just doesn't output enough damage, or it just isn't bulky enough to survive the hits it needs to be surviving. So, therefore, it loses a little viability to me, and we're dropping it down there. Terrapagos. I know it's Terrapagos, guys. I did that on purpose, just so everybody knows. I think this is a very viable Pokemon. I'm not going to put it up. I'm not going to put it up into Staples. Because I don't think it's quite a staple yet. I'm going to put it in very viable. I think it has the chance of being a staple Pokemon, but it's just like on the cusp of not being a staple Pokemon. It can output a lot of damage, but man, every time I use it, I just feel like I need more. Like, it's just like, I'll do, you know, 35% to a Pokemon when I'm like, man, if that just did 50%, then I would be in a very good position. But after a +2, it's just doing, it's doing like 40%. It's just not enough. It's just not enough. It is super bulky, and you can use some really good support Pokemon around it, but I just think it just feels meh a lot of the times, and yeah, it did perform well at the regionals, like respect where respect goes, but I don't know. Articuno, I think it's still niche. I'm gonna put it with Muck because you're kind of running a similar degenerate strategy here, and you set up, you know, your terrain, or not your terrain, but you set up your snow, and you kind of just hope they miss, and if they do hit, it's with physical attack. All right, Calyrex Shadow Rider. I know this thing isn't winning events, but the reason why it's not winning events is because everybody has multiple counters on their team for this Pokemon specifically. If you don't run a counter on your team for this Pokemon, whether it be something like, you know, Wide Guard, or you're running Incin, or you're running, you know, Chien-Pao or another dark Pokemon, you're forcing it into terrestrialization. If you're not doing one of these things, this thing just wipes you. Just completely wipes you. Not every restricted do you need a specific counter for. Like, your team doesn't need a specific counter for Calyrex Ice Rider, right? You don't need a specific counter for Zamazenta. As long as you have something that can deal with it, like Urshifu, then you're doing fine. But this Pokemon, you need a specific counter for, or ways of dealing it damage quickly. And oftentimes people don't have that, and then they just get wiped by it. So that's why this Pokemon doesn't perform super, super well at the events. But because of that, it's still a staple Pokemon. People are using it, performing pretty well, considering the fact that people have so many counters to it, and people have counters to it. So, like, you can't put it down to very viable, because then you're not preparing for it. Like, then you just lose to it. So it has to be a staple Pokemon. It's one of the strongest Pokemon ever created. I have too many bunched up here, restricted. So let's move some of this around. Miraidon. I think Miraidon is here. Miraidon is very, very good. Obviously, it keeps performing very well. They are now basically all Fairy Terra with Dazzling Gleam, so be careful for that. I don't know what else to say about it. It's really, really strong. I've even been seeing them just go for the straight Dazzling Gleam while I have Rillaboom. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are we doing this? The terrain's not even up, bro. Okidogi. I want him to be good, but he's pretty bad. I'm putting him in trash. I don't want to put him in trash because I do like him a lot. He's just not good. Different color Gastrodon. Of course, this is the correct order. I literally don't care. Whatever one I have in my box is the one I use. This is a niche Moltres. It's pretty good against the Calyrexes, and it can cause flinches, which is huge. It's just the speed tier is a little off. It doesn't have anything defensively against a lot of the restricted, so it's kind of meh. Volcarona is pretty good. I probably put it above Gastrodon. It's another one. You're going to have to terrestrialize this thing if they have an Urshifu. But if you can get that burn on the Urshifu, then this is a huge, huge advantage for you in a really, really strong Pokemon. And if you could start getting up those quiver dances and stuff like that, then you're going to be able to output a ton of damage and be pretty good. King Gambit, unfortunately, King Gambit, I haven't seen it at all, so I can't really judge it fairly. We did do pretty well. Listen, the AI gave us Bisharp. Just saying. Bisharp was pretty good. So maybe King Gambit is, and nobody's giving it a fair chance, but I just haven't seen it, so I can't really make a good judgment on it. I just don't think it's that good. I think there's just better dark Pokemon out there. Tornadus. I think Tornadus is a niche Pokemon. It's probably way down here. I've faced a couple of them, and they're doing what's, you can just do with, what's his face, Grimmsnarl, where they're just going for Thunder Waves and stuff like that. So they're not really doing anything special with it. It does give it Electric Attacker that's not Raging Bolt, but bro, Raging Bolt is insane. Every event, it's getting like 54% win percentage. Like that's an insane Pokemon. That's insane. I don't know why Slacking's here. He's trash. Did I rate him last time? He's trash. Staples, Indeedee. I think Indeedee's probably up here. Indeedee is very, very, very good. It just stops priority, sort of like what you're going to do with Farigiraf. You can set up Trick Room. It's not affected by Astral Barrage, so these are all very, very good things. But on top of that, it has Follow Me. So that's why it plays a different role than what you're going to see from the Farigiraf. So you can kind of pick your poison. The terrain affects you as well, which makes it a little bit worse than Farigiraf, so you can't go for your own priority attacks. So there's pluses and minuses to both of them, obviously, but I'm a big fan of Indeedee. It also activates Expanding Force, so that's cool. Heatran is trash. I thought Heatran had a chance, but after just like I faced one and it just like got body pressed and it just didn't exist anymore. I just I can't put it anywhere. It's just not good. I was like, oh yeah, this is actually not that good. We got Walking Wake. I think Walking Wake's actually really good. I've been seeing quite a few of it especially on Groudon teams recently, and Groudon's been increasing in usage. My only issue with it is it just feels like it's not outputting enough damage, despite the fact that it's getting boosted off of the sun or off of the rain. A lot of people are going for speed boosting, so maybe that's why too. So they're not outputting as much damage as they could. I just thought this Pokemon would do so much more damage than it does, and it just does not. It just does not. Next, we have Urshifu Dark. I think Urshifu Dark is very viable. Maybe it's on the cusp of being I don't think it's quite a staple. I have been seeing more of it, which is pretty cool because I'm so sick of taking Surging Strikes. I'll take a Wicked Blow, I guess. It's 4 times weak to Fairy, which makes it a little bit tough because it can never be faster than Flutter Mane. So you gotta take that into consideration too. But yeah, you gotta run Focus Sash on this thing, or else it's pretty cheeks. But Sucker Punch is so much better than Aqua Jet. So take that as you will as well. Next we have Gallade. Gallade's very viable. I'm gonna put it. I'll put it here. I think it's really good. It gets Wide Guard. It's another fighting type that gets Wide Guard, so it's competing in that same space that Minxiao is. But I think it's a lot better. It can set up Trick Room. It also has Sharpness. It one-shots things like Amoonguss with Psycho Cut. It can also go for a Night Slash, which could get rid of. Honestly, if you crit, it might be enough to knock out No Defense Investment, 252 HP, Calyrex Ice Riders, but I'm not sure about that count, so don't quote me on that, especially if you go Terra Dark, which I have seen, so people can set up Trick Room without being taunted by a priority user. So yeah, I think it's very viable. It's very good. Clefairy, I think I had in team specific, which I'm going to do again. I think it's probably here. It's really good in a lot of matchups, and it just takes a lot of pressure off of the Trick Room matchup for faster teams, especially those Calyrex teams where you can go after you, Astral Barrage, which is very strong. Just output a lot of damage really quickly, no matter what your opponent is doing. Because they're going to have to go for Trick Room on turn 1, so you get a free Astral Barrage off. They get it up. Then you go after you, and then you can go for Astral Barrage again. It's good. It's pretty good. So yeah. Como was... I had some hopes for Como going in, but I'm going to put it in niche viability. I think it's meh. I think it's just meh. It's another fighting type competing for those same spaces. 4 times weak to Draining Kiss, which isn't good. 4 times weak to Dazzling Gleam, not good. So you're already putting yourself at a disadvantage just against the 2 top restricted Pokemon. Just not good. Lilycole is going to be team, or Lilligant, not Lilycole. Lilligant is going to be team specific, of course, because you're going to have to run the Torkoal team or a Sun team in general. But if you're running one of the 2 restricted, you probably want a special attacker in the slot instead of having 2 physical attackers, especially Koraidon, because then you're running 2 fighting types. So it just makes it a little bit more difficult to use in those situations. But definitely team specific. I don't think it's super viable. There's a lot of hate for Sleep right now, so that kind of takes it out a little bit too. There's a lot of fake out, so your first turn's often going to be Protect. You're wasting a turn of Sun. Just meh. Politoed is probably trash. I had some hopes for it, but it's just not good. It's just not good, right? Umbreon, I think it's still team specific. I think it's probably on the lower end, but it is really good with Foul Play, so you can do some stuff with that. It's super bulky, and we've seen it actually do very well before the 2 Pokemon, like 2 of the top restricted Pokemon, were weak to it. I think it was 2019. Was it 2018 or 2019? It got second at Worlds, right? That's incredible. That's crazy. Next we have Zamazenta. I'm putting Zamazenta here. I think it's actually the 3rd best restricted now. It's so good. It's very consistent, and if you can keep it alive long enough, it'll just win you the game. The only problem is it can't hit. It can't hit this guy, right? It can't hit him. See, like I can't even get close to him. It can't hit him. So if they just knock out everything that's not named Zamazenta, you just lose the game. Ooh. Sorry, I'm thinking. I think I have to put Hisuian Arcanine down in trash. I haven't seen it at all. Could it have some viability? Maybe. I think it just might be too slow. I think that might be the problem. Mousehold, I think, is team specific. I'm going to put it here. I think it's better than this. I think this is probably better than this, too. I think it's really good. With the rise of Annihilate, too, I've been seeing more Mouseholds, though they're not usually the beat-up ones. Yeah, they could just output a lot of damage if you go for Population Bomb next to like a Chempound, normal Terra, like you could do some damage. It can also use Follow Me, which is really, really strong. Super Fang's really good too, especially against some of the bulkier restricteds. Like it's really good into Galapagos because you can go for like you go for the Super Fang and Drain Punch and it knocks out a base form Galapagos. I don't know if it knocks out the big boy Galapagos, but yeah. So then we have Giratina, who's trash. Just throw him down there. He's no good. All right, Torkoal. I had Torkoal up in viable, but I'm gonna put him down actually in team specific. I think he's dropping rapidly. I just don't think he has the oomph that he had at the beginning of the format, or the last time that the regulation was around, I should say, where he was pairing really well with these Ice Rider teams. But with the rise of Wyguard, there's a lot of Wyguard out there that it's just making it really hard to use Torkoal. Okay, Iron Valiant, I actually had in trash, but I think it's actually team specific. I think this is actually a pretty decent Pokemon. I know it got second at World, so I should have put a little bit more respect on its name, but other than that, it hadn't had any results and just really didn't show up. So it's hard to tell, but I just used it in this past video with the Bisharp. It's actually really good. It's so fast and can output some pretty decent damage for some weird typings, right? Fighting and Fairy is just an odd typing that has a really interesting, like, you know, type matchup into a lot of the formats. Good against dragons. It's good against, you know, steel type Pokemon. So that's something that you don't really get from too many Pokemon. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Terrakion, I think Terrakion is now trash. I thought it would be a little bit better than what it was. It just hasn't shown up at all. Grimmsnarl, I think Grimmsnarl's a staple. I think this Pokemon is very good. It's probably better than Indeedee right now. It just basically halves the damage, but the biggest thing it's doing right now is actually Thunder Wave. Thunder Wave just slowing down your team is just brutal, and then if you get one full paralysis, that could be the end of the game. Like, we talk about Encore, right? How big Encore can be for a lot of Pokemon. Especially on a restricted type Pokemon, getting them stuck into, you know, Protect or something like that where they're not doing anything for 3 turns. You know, one Thunder Wave could just be the end of the game and also lowering that speed. Porygon 2, I think Porygon 2 is still probably team specific. I think it's still pretty good. It doesn't get hit by Calyrex, and even if they go for Draining Kiss, it does basically 0. It gets Shadow Ball, so it can hit it for super effective. It can, you know, Ice Beam into some other stuff like Miraidon. So it can do quite a few things, and once again, setting up Trick Room. For some reason, I didn't end up ranking Regieleki. It stayed down at the bottom. I think this Pokemon is team specific. I'm gonna put it on the lower end though. I don't think it's that good. Every time I've faced it, it's just like it goes for Electro Web, and I'm just like, okay, sure. Like I don't care. Like, I'm just glad you're not a Raging Bolt is usually what I'm thinking. I'm like, if this was Raging Bolt, I'm probably struggling. But because it's Regieleki, I'm doing fine. Like, okay, sure, I don't care. I'll take Electro Web. Because I know I'm going to one-shot you anyway, so whatever. Next is Jumpluff. Jumpluff, we're actually getting a Jumpluff, Marco's Jumpluff from Latin American International Championship at the European International Championship. I think is next month. I don't know when it is, but it's coming up soon. I think it's pretty good. I still think it's pretty decent. I think it's team specific. It's better. It's probably better than regular Lilligant or Hisuian Lilligant. I keep saying Lilycole. I'm just like, every time I see this, because I only run it with Lilycole. I think it's better than that. It's super fast and also gets Tailwind, so that gives it a little bit of an edge. Covert Cloak on it. You're always getting a Tailwind up if you have the Sun. There's really no way to to stop it besides if you have like, I don't know, Ice Shard. I guess you have to have like Ice Shard and something else to be able to KO it. Ice Shard might be enough from Chien-Pao, but nobody's running Ice Shard Chien-Pao, so you're never gonna do it. Groudon. Groudon is going to be team specific. I don't think it's that good still. I know a lot of people are putting stocks into Groudon and it's going up. I just still think it's meh. I think it's meh. It just misses. And if you just miss, you just lose. So it's like, it's rough. And you have to be running your Clear Amulet on it. And if you're running like a Assault Vest or anything like that, then you're just losing to Incineroar. So it just feels really bad for your restricted to be walled by a non-restricted like 100% of the time. Yeah, you can hit with Precipice Blades, but at -1, you're not really doing too much. And then if you miss, then, you know, now you got Parting Shotted, and now you're in a bad situation, and you're just like, this Pokemon sucks. That's how I feel about it. People also putting stocks into Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh's terrible. Stop using Ho-Oh. It's not good. It's just not. It's just, I don't know what else to tell you. It's just not good. It's bad. Just use Entei. I feel like Entei is just better. Yeah, it doesn't have Regenerator, but like, do you want to always be like switching out your restricted Pokemon? No, like, no, you don't. Venusaur. I don't like Venusaur. I don't like it. I think it's niche viability. I think it's just worse than Jumpluff, and I think it's just worse than Lilligant. Both Lilligants. I just don't like it. I don't like it. I just think it's bad. Yeah, it gets Sludge Bomb, which could be super helpful, but overall, no, I don't see it. I mean, maybe as a strict Miraidon counter, especially now that they're all fairy, you know, you go with this, you go with this, you can, you know, go Precipice Blades, you can go Sludge Bomb into this, and you're guaranteed probably a knockout with those two combinations. I'm not sure, but it just doesn't feel good. I don't like it. I don't like it. Ursaluna is very viable. I really like Ursaluna Blood Moon. I think it does a lot of damage. I used it in the first time it was around. I haven't used it in the second time of Regulation H yet because I'm trying to use some new Pokemon. So I haven't picked it up yet, but yeah, I'll probably end up using a team with Ursaluna Blood Moon. Lugia is not that bad. Lugia is pretty good. I'll put niche though. You have to set up with it. You can take an Astral Barrage. Especially if you get a Calm Mind up, it just eats a Astral Barrage. Then you can just go for 2 Calm Minds. Just be careful about Chien-Pao, because Chien-Pao eats this thing. It's absolutely disgusting. With Fairy Terra, this thing is really good. So, yeah, it's going to be your main Terra type is going to be Fairy. If you're going for anything else, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, but Fairy is really good. Armarouge is terrible. Don't use Armarouge. I think I put him in niche viability because he has wide guard, but it's just not very good. Eternatus. Now, this is one that I had talked about where I think people are really sleeping on it. And I do. I really do think people are sleeping on it. I think it's better than Groudon. I think this Pokemon is very good. And I just don't think people have figured out how good yet. And I think when people do, it's going to be one of the most annoying Pokemon to face in all of Pokemon. Because this thing can become like, get to the point where you can't knock it out. It's so bulky at certain points. The damage output can be kind of meh at times, but overall this Pokemon is just very good. Breloom, we're gonna put it in niche for reasons. Okay. Ursaluna, regular Ursaluna, I think it's team specific. I think it's a lot worse than Blood Moon, and I thought that before, and in the past I've always liked Blood Moon a lot more. It doesn't require any setup, Blood Moon Ursaluna, unless you're going for, you know, Throat Spray. But it doesn't require any setup. You can get your attacks out right away doing max amount of damage, whereas this one you have to set up, and with a format with such high power level, it's a lot harder to do that. So my personal preference is Blood Moon over regular Ursa. Koraidon, I think Koraidon's still very good. I think it has a chance of just to keep moving up, and I see a lot of people now realizing this. We'll see. I think it might have a good showing at this regional. Chi-Yu. I think Chi-Yu is very, very good. I'm actually going to put it ahead of Ice Rider. I think it's very, very good, and I think a lot of people aren't using it right now, but this is a Pokemon I could see definitely going up in usage going forward. It does share some weaknesses with Caly-I, but it's a really, really scary partner for anybody who's using Shadow Rider. So you're going to have to be careful for that. Weezing, I think it's niche. I think you can use it. It pairs really well with the Calyrexes because it doesn't affect their abilities, which is stupid. You can also use Ability Shield Urshifu, which is really cool and really, really annoying because you can attack through their protects, but they can't attack through yours. I faced a couple of Melodics, but they didn't bring them, so I can't really tell if it's good. It's probably because the team I'm using doesn't have Intimidate, so they didn't bring it, but I guess against Intimidates, if you're using something like Groudon, I guess you don't want to bring it with Groudon or Caly-I. Maybe another physical attacker you want to bring it with, so that way it can't be intimidated. This is the way to go. I thought Glamora would be better too, but I think it's just trash. It just doesn't do enough, and it's just not outputting damage. I still think Scizor is decent, especially with the rising of both of these Pokemon actually becoming fairy types. It's really strong into those. Maybe with an Assault Vest, you know, Assault Vest Ground Terror could be really, really good on it. And then you can get maybe not go for Bullet Punches because of the Fergraphs on the Miraidon team, but maybe you can go for Iron Head or something like that. Rayquaza, I'm gonna put it in niche. I think it's okay. I've never lost to one, so I don't know what it feels like, but like people like them, and we just got shiny ones, right? So I'm guessing people will use it. So Screamtail, I actually put in trash tier, and I shouldn't have. I don't know why I did. It should definitely be in team specific. Disable Encore is so good. This Pokemon is extremely fast, especially if you have the Sun Up or if you're using Booster Energy. It's extremely fast. It does have a weakness, but if you just go Protect, then you can just disable Astral Barrage, and if they go for Protect to stop the disable, then you can just Encore Protect. So you can do some really cool countermeasures with this Pokemon. It can also, it's one of the few Pokemon that are running Encore that can actually Encore Fake Out on Incineroar. Of course, Incineroar not affected by, you know, Prankster. So if you are using Whimsicott, you are unable to go for that. But with Screamtail, you can actually do that, and it feels pretty good. You can also disable like anything, right? You can just disable. If this goes for Volt Switch, you can just disable it. And now they can't Volt Switch next turn, right? Then they're stuck out for an extra turn. And that could be the difference between you winning or losing the game. So I think it's a really good Pokemon. Base 4 Zamazenta is trash, but I do think base form Zamazenta will be good in a double restricted format. I just think right now you need to have the full version of Zamazenta. Comfey, I think Comfey is actually pretty good. I'm gonna put it here. I think it pairs really well actually with Lugia, as it can just heal up Lugia. It's also really good with Terapagos because you can just heal it up with a Floral Healing back to full while you're going for Calm Minds. So some really fun things you could do with it. It also puts pressure onto Urshifu's, which you wouldn't think because its special attack's not super high, but it is high enough to actually take a knockout on Urshifu if they don't have any investment. So really good with that, or any fighting weak Pokemon. Cresselia, I thought Cresselia would be okay, but it's just booty cheeks. It's just not very good. It's just too slow, I think, is the problem. And after it gets Trick Room set up, it's just not really doing too much. So people have been talking about how Zacian is actually good. It's not. It's not good. Why are you guys trying to make Zacian good? He's not good. He's just bad. Like, the fact that he lost attack, if his ability just changed, he would be fine. I think he would be really good, but that attack drop that he got from the nerf is really hurting him. And if you just switch in Incineroar one time, it's over. It's over. Suicune, I still think Suicune could be a niche viability, probably very, very low. Tailwind is really good on a water type, so Iron Bundle, I actually really like Iron Bundle, but I think it's team specific. It's very fast. Go for Icy Wind. It can go for Freeze Dry, which is good into some of the restricted Pokemon. It can also go for Hydro Pumps, which is the worst thing you could possibly click on it. So I think it's pretty decent. A little bit slept on maybe, but I think it's pretty decent. Next we have Berserker. I don't know why I even put this thing up there. I think it's just terrible. I thought maybe with something like Zacian, maybe it could be something, but it just doesn't do anything. Kyogre. I know Kyogre did pretty well in the Birmingham Regionals. So I'm going to put it in very viable, which is a tier ahead of where I had it before. But actually, it's probably better than Pelipper. Yeah, it's probably better than Pelipper. But yeah, despite being in like a lot of the top cut, it did not perform well overall. Only a 50% win-loss record in the tournament. So that means some people did very poorly with it. So this is a Pokemon that's very dependent on the skill level of the trainer, I think. So that makes it not really the best tier because you have to be good with using it in order to do well. Whereas some of these other Pokemon, you could just click funny buttons and win games. Though I think Miraidon is actually pretty hard to use. Honestly, I think Miraidon is, but it's just put up so many results that it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Raichu, I think is still niche. I think it's probably pretty meh. Fake Out, Lightning Rod is a thing. People are still trying to make Glacier a thing. I don't think it's a thing. Stop. Like, you click Sword Dance with this, and I'm just like, okay, sure. What are you gonna do? Icicle Crash, you're gonna miss. Dawn Wings, I do like Dawn Wings. I'm gonna put it in team specific. It's probably worse than Groudon at the moment. It's probably worse than Jumpluff too. I do like it though. I think it does a lot of damage. Meteor Beam is pretty cool. You can also go for, you know, Expanding Force if you want to. Moongeist Beam always does a lot of damage. So there's some really cool things. Wide Guard. But I just think that its weaknesses to some of the top tier Pokemon just really do hurt it and bring it down. Next we have Trash. Yeah, Duskmane is awful. He's just not very good. Like, Solgaleo's better, and Solgaleo's still going to be down here because he's also trash. He's just better because he has Clear Body, so he can't be intimidated, whereas this you have to run Clear Amulet. This you can run any item you want, so it's just strictly better. Kyurem White, I think Kyurem White's actually pretty good. It's probably above these. It can output a lot of damage. Having ice and fire typing like attacks is really strong. It's good into Zamazenta as well as being good into Miraidon. So it does have a lot of viability and versatility in those aspects, and yeah, it could just take random knockouts with Blizzard. So it's really scary because its special attack is extremely high. Klefki, I think, is still a niche viability. It can set up Trick Room. It can also go for Screen, so that's always going to make it a pretty decent Pokemon. We got Iron. What is it called again? Why can't I think of his name? The bug. Why can't I think of his name? Iron Moth. There we go. We have Iron Moth. I think it's still niche because it can pair well with Miraidon. Maybe you're going for something for the GC. It could be, you know, your kind of trick where you can have a basic regular Miraidon team, but then you're splashing on your Iron Moth to just like take your opponent by surprise. Next we have Carbink. I think Carbink is a niche Pokemon too. It's super bulky. You can set up Trick Room, but it's just not good. I put Persian here because I think Persian could be something, but nobody's using it, so it's pretty trash. Reg G Steel is just bad. There's just better options to do the same thing, so just don't use it. Iron Hands is a staple Pokemon, I think. This Pokemon could be used on more teams than it's being used on. I think a lot of people are actually sleeping on Iron Hands at the moment, and I think part of the problem is it wants to run the same item as Rillaboom, so you have to pick between it and Rillaboom, and that makes it very, very difficult for somebody to make that decision because you're like, well, I really need Rillaboom, but Iron Hands is very good. So you have to kind of pick one. This Weezing's better than that Weezing, but not by much. He's just kind of meh. Karen Black is awful. I faced a Karen Black yesterday with Zamazenta, and he just did like no damage. So yeah. Magmar, I think Magmar is probably a niche Pokemon. It can fit the same role as Electabuzz. It's just doing it a little bit different, and it's weak to Urshifu, so he has a disadvantage. Gouging Fire, I think, is team specific. This will be up here. It pairs really well with Koraidon, despite them having like very similar typings, because you're going to go into fire with this often. So it kind of has similar typings. They're kind of doing the same thing. You want them, but Howl is just so strong. Howl boosting up like something like Koraidon is scary. And you could probably go Water Koraidon to get rid of some of those weaknesses because you're going pluses anyways. So maybe you can get out of that a little bit. Also, Heat Crash just one-shots quite a few Pokemon. Basiligian. I think Basiligian is team specific. It's probably just under Jump Bluff. I think this is probably under Jump Bluff too. It's just pretty good in the rain. If you're gonna go for a full rain team, this is something you could throw on, have it in the back, use it for last resorts. Zekrom is awful. Okay, Rillaboom. Honestly, Rillaboom right now, #1 Pokemon in my opinion. It's so strong. It just does everything on one Pokemon. It kind of feels like how Incineroar used to feel is kind of how I feel about Rillaboom now. It takes hits from all of these Pokemon. I guess Chi you can one-shot it. Maybe in the sun with Heat Wave for sure. I don't think just regular Heat Wave, but it can take a hit from every single Pokemon that's here. It can take a hit from every single Pokemon that's here, maybe except Flare Blitz from Koraidon. It can take a hit from every Pokemon here except maybe a Sun Boosted Charcoal or Full Eruption. Like, it can just eat attacks that it's even weak to and just deal tons and tons of damage with the Wood Hammer, which one-shots or at least does enough damage to a lot of the Calyrex Shadow Riders that Grassy Glide then one-shots them, right? It one-shots Farigirafs unless they're fully invested in defense. So you just get one shot on this thing, and then you could start going for Grassy Glides or Fake Outs. So and you can catch them switching in, right? You just catch one of these guys switching in, and it's over, and then you're good to go. All right, Samurott. I thought he would be better, but nobody's using him, so. Wo-Chien, I haven't seen a Wo-Chien. I've heard people using Wo-Chien. I'm going to put it in niche because I think it is pretty good. I know it was pretty good on the Kyogre teams, right? So maybe we can see that continuing. I'm not really sure. It's just a bulky Pokemon, and it can just sit there. Next is Entei. I think Entei is team specific, though I don't think it's that good. I've faced a few of them now, and they just kind of feel meh. I guess they're good because they can't be intimidated or faked out. So you compare it next to a ghost Pokemon like Calyrex, and then you have two Pokemon that can't be faked out, or next to like a Fluttermane or something, and then you just have a lot of damage output onto your Pokemon. Whimsicott is very good. It's probably better than Chi-Yu. It's probably much better than Chi-Yu. I don't think it's better than Zama though. Is it? I don't know. It's very consistent. It's Tornadus is cheeks compared to this Pokemon. It's just really strong. And I remember people going, Whimsicott is not better than Tornadus. And I said, wait until the restricted formats, my friend. Here we are. Go look at the win-loss percentages. Reshiram, I think, is going to be niche. I think it's okay. If you see when was it AI? AI made me the team, or was it the RNG? Either way, I used Reshiram, and it did pretty decent. Gothitelle, I think, is also a niche Pokemon. It's actually pretty good. It's super bulky, gets fake outs, you could set up Trick Room. There's better options, but it's still, if you really like it, it's actually pretty good. Electabuzz, I think, is team specific. I'm going to put it probably here. Follow Me is very, very good on this Pokemon. Stops you from being able to be put to sleep with Vital Spirits. It's just a decent Pokemon. It can also go for Electro Webs to control the speed. Base form Dialga is trash. I just don't think it's that good. The base form, yeah, you can use Assault Vest on it, Mental Herb, you know, leftovers, but it just feels like it just doesn't do enough damage. Urshifu Water, of course, is going to be here. I think it's here, yeah. I think it's a little bit better than Farigiraf because it's just such a scary Pokemon. It's obviously #1 in usage for a reason. It just Surging Strikes is crazy, and then it also has coverage move with close combat. So and it has a priority move with Aqua Jet. It's just kind of crazy. Tauros Fire. I put this thing up here. I'll put Water down here too. They're just not good. Oranguru, I think it's still team specific. I really like Oranguru. It's probably better than Tyranitar. I do like it. Being able to use your restricted attacks twice seems actually insane. Like, why wouldn't you want to? So, yeah. Tatsugiri. Tatsugiri is pretty meh. And Dondozo is team specific. You could put Tatsugiri in team specific because technically it's team specific, but you could run Dondozo without the Tatsugiri and it's still okay, but you can't run Tatsugiri without the Dondozo because it's trash. Next we have Water Pond, which I had Water Pond up in Staples, but now I am dropping it to team specific. I'm going to put it at the top of team specific. I haven't seen it. That's just it. I haven't seen it. I've seen Cornerstone. I've seen Hearthflame. I've even seen Grass form. Well, I didn't get the face that he didn't bring it, but yeah, Grass form. I have not seen a Water form once, and I'm running Urshifu Water. So if I had seen one, they probably would have brought it. Murkrow, I think, is still team specific. It can do foul play stuff. It can go for Tailwind. It can't be taunted by a priority user. It can taunt its like another Pokemon itself, so that's pretty good. Malin DD, I'm going to put very low on this list. Setting up Psychic Terrain is good, and it can self, expanding Force, but other than that, it's not really doing anything. Iron Boulder is pretty bad. I'm going to keep it here just because it can hit through Protect, which is good, and it can hit through Protect without its ability. So you can pair it with a why am I blanking? A Weezing, and then you could still hit through their Protect. So pretty cool. Fluttermane. Fluttermane is going up here. I'm dropping it down, boys. I'm dropping it down. I think it's here. I think it's really good. It's just playing a completely different role than what it does in other formats, where it's a support Pokemon. Taunt. You're going for Icy Wind, Moonblast, Protect usually. You can also do like Imprison with Dazzling Gleam. You can do, Shadow Ball, like to pressure onto Caly-I, especially in like the GC and stuff, because they'll just terastallize right away, and it's great. So yeah, it's really, really good, and it forces your opponent to have to make different plays. It can just have so many different sets that in a closed team sheet environment, very, very strong. In an open team sheet environment, you know what it does, but you can't really stop it. You know what I mean? So it makes it hard. Reg G Gigas is trash. Typhlosion, I thought Typhlosion would be okay, but I'm going to put it in trash tier. I just don't think people are using it, and maybe we might see some more of it, but I don't really see anybody using it right now. Talonflame, I think, is still pretty good. I'm going to put it on team specific down at the bottom here. It still gets very fast Tailwind. It can also go for priority Brave Birds, which is really good against something like Koraidon or, Urshifu. So it can put some pressure on that way. It also gets Taunt and Will-O-Wisp, which are really good utility moves. So it can do quite a few things, and I think it's still a pretty decent Pokemon, but you have to have a team where it fits. Next, we have good old Roaring Moon, who I'm going to put up on team specific, probably around here. We're seeing this thing go up, especially on those Kyogre teams. It can get a really fast Tailwind off. It can't be taunted by priority. You're not going to really get to taunt this thing at all because it's so fast after the booster energy. And then it can go for acrobatics or it can go for knockoff, so it can do a ton of damage, especially into like Caly-I because it outspeeds Caly-I. It is very, very weak to Draining Kiss, but, you know, if you can get around that, you'll be doing all right. Giratina Alter, nope. Landorus, I think, is still very viable. I think it's really, really good. I like Substitute on it right now, so if you're not running Substitute on it, just put it on. Just put it on. It's really good. I've seen one. I'm going to put it here. I've seen one. They didn't bring it against me, but I have seen it, and it can do some stuff. It's competing with so many other good fighting types. I'm also going to put you down here, though you're probably a little bit higher. Be able to go for the Aurora Veils to set up basically double screens right away. Helps you restricted so much. The problem is it's not very good against like Zamazenta, which can one-shot it with Heavy Slam. You kind of got to put your Focus Sash on it. So if you put Focus Sash on it, then you're not able to run, you know, the Light Clay, and then what are you doing? You know what I mean? So it's kind of rough. It's kind of run, yeah. You might as well run. Pheasant Dippity is pretty trash. I do want to use this. I'm going to try this Pokemon out relatively soon, but I just don't think it's very good. Corviknight, though, I do think is pretty good. I think it's underused Pokemon. It's just not very good into Miraidon, so it's kind of holding it down. But I think it's team specific, and I think it can be a pretty viable Pokemon. Dunsparce is trash. It's just not good enough. Dusclops, that saddens me. It's just not good enough. It's not. You can go Dark Terra all you want. It's just not good enough. It's just not. Sterilege, also just not good enough. It doesn't output enough damage at the moment. You could use it for Shadow Sneak, but they're just gonna Terra Fairy and then just one-shot you. So Garchomp, I think it still has some viability. I'll put it up here with Tyranitar. I think it's a little bit worse than Tyranitar, but I do think it still has a little bit of... If you really like, you know, Tyranitar, Garchomp, and you've been running it forever, Glenn, then you might find some uses for these, but yeah, not me. I think this is pretty bad too. Sylveon is pretty rough. It just doesn't do anything that can't already be done by other Pokemon. Yeah, Pixelay is okay, but it's just not doing enough. Sableye, I think Sableye is actually very, very good. I think it's another underutilized Pokemon. It can just do so much into so many different things, and it can go for foul plays, which are pretty huge. We have Quash, which is ginormous, especially if you're in a mirror matchup against like another Calyrex or something. So it can do quite a few things, and it's a little bit difficult to knock out. So Incineroar is up here, of course. I think it is worse than Farigiraf right now, just because Farigiraf's versatility is so big. But yeah, knockoff. People are actually using Will-O-Wisp now over knockoff, and using Flare Blitz, which I think is a weird setup. I like the knockoff Will-O-Wisp a little bit more. But however you're running it, it's a good Pokemon. I've even seen a lot more Assault Vest. I also saw one that was just max attack, so and just going for attacks. Ditto is definitely team specific, but I'm going to put it up here. It's actually been performing pretty well, but you have to be a very good player to use this Pokemon because it is not easy. It is a not easy Pokemon to use. So be very careful. Lilligant, I'm going to put this with other Lilligants, but just worse, because I think Hisuian Lilligant is better, has better stats, it's faster. They do the same thing, but it just close combat just kind of makes a difference there. Oh, Brute Bonnet. I do want to use Brute Bonnet too. This is another Pokemon I'm going to use. And I'm going to use it on a Sun team, and I think it'll be pretty good, but I'm not sure. I'm really not. Dragapult, I think Dragapult's still pretty good. I'm going to put it up here. It's probably around here, right? It's probably worse than this. I think it's still really good. It outputs a lot of damage. It just, you know, is evasive. It's super, super fast. Except this thing exists, so it makes it really hard to use. Next we have Lycanroc, who's going to go into trash. I don't know why he wasn't in trash last time. We have Goldango. I had Goldango and very viable, but I think I'm going to drop him down. I'm going to drop him down to about here. I just really haven't seen one, and the ones I have seen, I've just kind of one-shot with whatever I might have, though. Like, Zamazenta just has no way to hit Goldango, so if you could just get Goldango paired up against a Zamazenta at the end game, it's kind of over. But that's just how it goes. Dialga. Now, you know, I put the regular Dialga down here. This Dialga, though, however, is probably up here. Listen, I know, wild take. I think this Pokemon is very, very, very good. I think it's just so much stronger than the regular Dialga that it's not even funny. It's just like the item gives it that 20% boost, but it also gets boosts into its damage by being the origin form. So you're just getting more damage on more damage, and it's still just as bulky, basically. So you're not losing a bulk, but you're gaining more damage. You can go for Trick Rooms with it. You know, it has some pretty decent coverage moves, but you can go Dragon Pulse, and you can go what's it called, Flash Cannon, which then covers from Rhydon no matter what it does, because you're going to get a Trick Room off most likely. And then if they go Fairy Terra, then you have that Flash Cannon to do damage into it, and if they stay Dragon type, then you have the Dragon Pulse to go into it. So you have options to go into it no matter what it does, which is really, really strong. It's also pretty good into Calyrex Shadow Rider, as Calyrex Shadow Rider doesn't really do that much damage to it, surprisingly. Like, if you saw the damage calcs for it, it doesn't do that much damage, and then you can hit it back for basically 50%. And if they go for a Fairy Terra, then you just one-shot it, or get very close to one-shotting it with Flash Cannon. It's really, really, really good. Hatterene, I think, is still very niche. It's pretty good. It can set up Trick Room, of course, and it has Magic Bounce, so you could switch it into Amoonguses, especially Amoongus that have Terastallized, and they put themselves to sleep. Raging Bolts. Just kidding. It's here. This is the second best Pokemon. Without a doubt in my mind, this is the second best Pokemon. Having a consistent 54% win percentage in official events, like, it's not like people aren't ready for it, or it's like a very specific Pokemon or something like that. This is a very well-known Pokemon, and it's still winning events. It's still doing extremely well at events. It's so strong, and paired with Rillaboom, it's very, very strong. It has a great priority attack. It can go for like 3 or 4 different sets. It can go for like 3 or 4 different Terra types. This thing can just do so much. All right, and this is, I love Gucha. I can't put it in trash. It's niche. It's niche. I don't care what anybody says. Sorry, my eye is like itchy. Sinistcha. I think Sinistcha is team specific. I think it helps some of your bulky Pokemon. I've seen it. I've seen it sitting next to Terapagos, and I've seen it sitting next to Zamazenta. I've seen it sitting next to Raging Bolt, who's just basically a restricted. So I've seen it doing quite a few things. It also has Rage Powder, Trick Room, so you can have some redirection after you set up Trick Room. It can do quite a few things, and it does them pretty well. And just switching it in makes your Pokemon 25% better, right? It's just how math works. Next we have Regidrago. I think it's okay. I know a lot of people are super high on this. I'll probably put it around here. I know some people are super, super high on him, but I'm just kind of in the middle right now. I think he's decent, but I don't think he is the best of all time. Next, we have Ogerpon Hearthflame. This is the best of the Ogerpons. I think it's better than Fluttermane, too. He's just really, 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 really strong, right? He's really strong. So, he just outputs a lot of damage, can follow me away attacks, can also go for grass attacks, so he's covering his, covering water weaknesses if you Terastallize. When you do Terastallize, you get an attack boost, which is a huge deal. He's a little meh against Incineroar, but after you Terra, like, knockoff is the best move into you, and, you know, if you crit an Ivy Cudgel, then you're winning the race, so, but very, very good. Palkia Origin Form, I'm going to put down here. I don't think it's that good, but I think it could have a place. I just don't think enough people are using it yet. Smeargle, I'm going to put Smeargle up in team specific because that's exactly what it is. It depends on your team if this Pokemon is good or not. Like, it's not very viable because on some teams it's completely garbage, but on some teams it could be on every one of those teams, but it just, you know, it's just kind of meh. Rhyperior is probably trash. I thought this Pokemon would be a little bit better, but it just hasn't been. When I play, I've only ever played one, and I played Miraidon, and then they had this, and I was like, are you kidding me? I played Miraidon for like 3 games, and I was like, I hate this Pokemon. Archaludon. I think Archaludon is also team specific. I'll put it with Best Legion because they're basically going to be on the same team or similar type teams. Primarina is probably trash. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I guess Fairy type is just kind of meh right now, and it just doesn't really output the damage or have the bulk. Palkia is probably pretty bad. I'll put it up with the Origin Form. I'm not sure which one's better. I want to test them because I do like Palkia, but I think in a double restricted format, this is going to be a good Pokemon. Tornadus. Now, we had Tornadus up in Staple. I'm putting it down here in Very Viable. Listen, I did a video about it. I went over why I think Tornadus actually isn't that good, and if you're putting it on your team a lot of the times, you're just absolutely throwing, because it's just worse than Whimsicott. It's just worse. It's just worse. If you look at the win-loss records, it's just worse. Also, its usage has been decreasing dramatically recently. But even at this recent regional, it had like a 44% win percentage at Birmingham, right? Was it Birmingham? What was it? Yeah, right? I can't remember now. My brain is mush. Yeah, so it's just been getting worse. It's just worse. It's just worse. Run Whimsicott. It's just better. All right. Lunala. I think Lunala is probably better than Dawn Wings, but it does stuff a little bit different. It has less special attack, so you're losing out on that. It's a little bit faster, which is you're gaining something there, but if you want to be slower, then you know you're gonna use the other one. Ting-Lu. I can't sleep on Ting-Lu. He hasn't shown up, but I believe. And Snorlax is probably trash because he's too slow. He's too slow. What can you do? But yeah, that's kind of my tier list. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think this is probably the same lineup I had, but in a different order. I just think Rillaboom is just so strong right now. If you're not running Rillaboom, run Rillaboom. I'm telling you, it's so good against everything that's not named Zamazenta, or I guess Koraidon. But it's good against every single other thing in the whole entire game. It's just so good. Like Grassy Glide into close combat. This is just gone. This is gone. It's just gone. Like, you can't do anything against that. So like, it's just so good. But yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys did enjoy the video, make sure you guys thumbs it up. If you're not subscribed, make sure you guys do so. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everybody.